playing Laos in the ASEAN Championship was a lot more difficult than playing against Saudi Arabia, or who I admittedly were very off form in the World Cup qualifiers, because two different competitions, but it required, you can say, two different strategies. Indonesia 3, Laos 3. The match of the tournament in this ASEAN Championship so far. An unexpected result. In a way, getting a point is as good as a near upset for the underdogs, the Laotians. And for these young Indonesians, they thrilled the crowd at home, but yet they appeared to have returned to their natural instincts. What do I mean by that when I say natural instincts? I think I can elaborate a bit more. But first, a look at how Indonesia played throughout those 90 minutes against the Laotians. Although there were a few quiet moments, but it's largely quite intense affair. Non-stop exchange of goals and a flurry of activity on the pitch, on and off the ball, and that red card to Marcelino Ferdinand. It might sound rather blasphemous for me to say this, but for Indonesia tonight, playing Laos is a lot harder than playing Saudi Arabia. For this is actually the biennial regional tournament where you're up against Southeast Asian national teams, whether it's your strongest or in Indonesia's case, fielding their prospective internationals and throwing them into the deep end, or you're going through a transition, you're blooding in new young players to form the new core as the future mainstays of their respective national teams, or trying to go out to win with experience like Singapore. We have a very number of approaches, but one thing always stands out when it comes to the ASEAN Championships. Games, when played in full flow, not always, it can be very full-blooded. Full-blooded, not just in terms of the play. Sometimes your best, the most organized tactics, the most meticulous plans are totally thrown out of the window. And you can say that for the Garudas tonight, they went back to their nocturnal instincts, playing wild, playing free, like their predecessors. Sure, they were playing with a lot of talent going forward, showing their technique, showing their nifty movement, especially in the second half, where for an extended period of time after halftime, they were laying siege at the Laos goal and eventually scoring to take the lead for the first time, only to concede again. Although the Laos goal for the final score was a bit controversial, as Laos number 16, you are not sure whether the ball was still a little bit on the line, which is reminiscent of how Japan got that controversial assist in their win over Spain in the World Cup group stage in Qatar. Right? There are parallels to that. But still, that finish was well taken. Once again, you can say there was nothing much Garuda's coach Shin Tae-yong can do, because for all the plans, for all his ideas that he wants, and all the teaching that he's trying to inculcate to this raw young group of players, if you take away the 6-7 more experienced young seniors in this Garuda setup for the ASEAN Championship, the thing is, yes, it's true, a few pass, the jury is still out, and a number, I think this is like what has happened the previous time, as I mentioned in the Indonesia game against Myanmar. I think for one or two of them who featured tonight, this is probably their first and probably the last time they'll be wearing the Garuda's jersey. unless a different national coach comes and sees him as a more mature, international ready player thereafter. But still, the thing is, their inexperienced show, and they were not ready to deal. Not all of them are ready to deal with the, you can say, the intensity the visitors provided, particularly from their captain. Let me see, from their captain Bompachan Bongkong. He was the main tormentor for Laos against a very fragile Indonesian backline, who were very unsure because, once again, like what has happened against Myanmar, Indonesia were very sloppy in their positioning, in their marking. It's mainly down to inexperience, but also at the same time, they were turning over possession unnecessarily, particularly in the more vulnerable areas in midfield, in defense. And quite a number of times they did that against Laos tonight. And Laos, you might be surprised, but Laos did not have any player who suffered cramps at all. It means their fitness levels have gone up considerably, and they had a little better endurance to last the full 90 minutes and in added time than in previous editions, where probably after the 80th minute, after the 75-minute mark, they will fade away and all. Yes, you can see that they were a bit tired, while the Indonesians are still quite fresh, but their heads were getting a little bit loose. Because the thing about Southeast Asian football, especially when it comes to national teams and Southeast Asian competitions, is sometimes once you play against, whether you are from the Nusantara region or you're from the mainland region like Thailand, Indochina and all that, the thing is, once these cultures meet, there's something that is always certain. It's not just the battle for pride, but I think it's that full-bloodedness of the contest. Some of these contests really have gone, in past editions of the ASEAN Championship, have gone to this extent. Tonight is one of them, a new one added to this growing list. In what has otherwise been a rather, you can say, a little bit sterile, this game has lit up the tournament so far. So coming back to Indonesia, Shin Tae-yong actually started a rather different type of back three with, he started a back three with their number 5 Kakang actually playing on the right side of a 3-man defense alongside Muhammad Ferrari, who is on the left side this time, with Kadek Artel playing in the middle of the 3-man of the trio. Then you got Donitri Pamukas, who was pushed out to left wing back, and Pamata Ahan on the right. And Rafael Strick actually started this game. Although he did not score, he showed why he's quite a valuable asset to the Garudas and Shin Tae-yong. He started alongside Hoki Chakara, who is given a second chance as a starter, but was once again rather quiet. Then you got your Marcelino, you got your Akan Fikri, and for the first time in this tournament, Rehan Hanan. And you got a new goalkeeper, Dafa Faria. And the thing is, the 3 debutants who started today, they unfortunately did not pass the test. The goalkeeper, obviously, 3 goals, could have been in a better position to cover a few things, cover the angles. Not very convincing in commanding the goal. And it is not helped that the Laos captain kept attacking the 2 most inexperienced defenders among the trio. You can tell that, yes, he did turn around Ferrari for the second Laos goal. But the way he tried to, when he had led the counter attack, with the 2 assists that led to the first 2 Laos goals, he was exposing the fragility of Indonesian backline with his experience with the exposure having played in the Cambodian Premier League, I mean, and also that footwork and the vision, that vision to split apart the defense, and obviously with Laos getting robust in their tackling, like what Myanmar did, it's really a test of the will. That's why I mentioned that playing Laos in the ASEAN Championship was a lot more difficult than playing against Saudi Arabia, or who I admittedly were very off form in the World Cup qualifiers, because two different competitions, but it required, you can say, two different strategies. The two different strategies that I'm talking about is the mentality and the, I would say, tactical approach. It's the individual approach to games, because in the World Cup qualifiers, when you come up against the best teams in the continent, you cannot afford to be reckless. You have to be more tactical, you have to be more patient, you have to find loopholes, and you know that because your opponents are stronger, they are technically better, and I think in the best Asian countries like Japan, their football education level is a lot higher than what these local bonds ever have, and that's where the Dutch players come in. The Dutch born heritage players come in for this World Cup final round qualifying campaign. But in this ASEAN Championship, you only have Rafael Struijk. He's the only, you can say, heritage player in this almost all local squad. So there is every chance that even with the vast international experience like Marcelino had, yet for some reason they went back, you can say, reverted back to type, and there's nothing Shin Tae-yong can do, because those nocturnal instincts, those instincts that they had already been honed when they were younger through their clubs, through their coaches, and also through the local culture, the local football culture. It's already quite ingrained. It's not like if your local football culture is at a very high level like Japan or England, Spain, and Germany, Italy for that matter, or even your South American countries like Argentina and Brazil, then the local football culture is going to, part of it is still going to stay inside the local born Garudas mentality, even after all the training, even after all the lessons, after all the tactical plans Shin Tae-yong has incubated in them over those few years since he took charge in 2020. And the thing is, they have learnt a lot. They knew a lot more things. They were more than adequately prepared for the final round of World Cup qualifiers against Asia's best, alongside those heritage players who strengthened the team through the technique and the game smarts. But yet in the ASEAN Championships, you can see, once the Laotians came flying at them, once the Laotians kept pressuring them, it's unfortunate that a few of the Indonesian heads went the other way. The mentality is, I think when the chips are down, sometimes you need the seniors. In this case, the young Indonesians who have amassed more than 10 caps. Your Pawata Ahans, your Asnawis, your Marcelinos, and Rafael Struijk, even to uplift the team, and it's a huge demand. But yet at the same time, because they're all local, I mean, take away Struijk, those local born instincts always there. You can take the person out from the village, you can take the person out of the local football kampong, but yet there's part of that local football culture, local football mentality that remains ingrained. And you can say that the rather reckless side has been exposed. Yes, the technique is a lot better and all that, especially when going forward. But yet, when they tried to go forward, it's like they couldn't play the way they would have done in the World Cup qualifiers or even against Myanmar in the second half. And once they were frustrated, obviously they will go flying in. Marcelino, 2 yellow cards in the second half and he got red carded. And once your midfield general for this tournament is gone, in a way there was no midfield left. It helped that Laos were opening up because they were retreating all the way back in the final stages of the game. But there was no general left to say, come, let this other guy to dictate the midfield, whether it's Arkan Fikri or Robbie Dawis or some other midfielder who is on the pitch at the moment. Nobody is there to command and lead the midfield. It's like they're trying to earn penalties. Asnawi flew, trying to do, whether it's a Neymar or trying to do an acrobatic stunt to fool the Japanese referee into giving a last gasp penalty. It didn't work. And the thing is, when things get desperate, the local-born Indonesians really got found out. And it's a massive lesson. Because once they are found out, there's no place to hide. And it's fortunate that because Indonesia are not sending the full-strength squad, the fans are realistic. At least the young Garudas did not end the match with a defeat, even though drawing with the Minos is considered a shock already. It's only their second draw to the same opponents since 2012. Although they have remained unbeaten in all these, you can say, 8 head-to-head encounters in this tournament. And the thing is, once you get reckless, once you start running, showing out, you can see desperation in their passing, desperation in trying to push for goal, and you can say that instinct to want to just play individually. It's where Laos, to their immense credit, really, Laos kept their discipline. Laos were fitter than usual. Their mentality is a lot stronger than the 1-4 defeat where they held one of the pre-tournament favourites to a goalless until 5-6 minutes into the second half. And going away and without a proper pre-match training session due to bad weather and all the travel, to come away with this result is a huge credit to Laos. It's a huge credit to the landlocked nation, the underdogs. And they're going to go into their remaining games with absolute confidence against Philippines and Myanmar, who faced each other off in the earlier game and drew 1-1. The thing is, for Laos, it's as good as a win. For Indonesia, a huge learning lesson, a defeat, and it raises this question. Once again, when you play the ASEAN Championship, it raises this awkward question. Because of the Garuda's encouraging performance in the final of World Cup qualifiers, and still having a shot to reach North America 2026 finals, the question is, how are you going to improve your local league? How are you going to improve that mentality locally? Because the local culture is like this. Shin Tae-yong is from South Korea. It's a different level. He has taught, as I mentioned earlier, he has taught all these tactics, he has taught all these game intelligence, what you need to do in matches, the know-how and all that, and against smarter opponents, they applied them very well. But yet, all these were thrown out of the window when these young Garudas got desperate. And when these young Garudas get desperate, it's about, once I get the ball, I'll just run, I'll just chiong, I'll just try to see whether I can shoot, whack and go. And even Struik got, you can see, affected by this also. Even he was taking a few pot shots. One of them went straight, one of them went over. And in the end also, none of the goals Indonesians scored really came from open play. The 3 goals that Indonesia scored, especially 2 of them within the 4 goals in 9 minutes, that madness opening stages of the first half. It was all that from the throw-in that started all it. Pramata Ahan, first Indonesian equalizer. Pramata Ahan throw-in, Marcelino causing problems on the left, and Kadek Amal pushing through the equalizer. Then Muhammad Ferrari heading home from a back, yet another Parata Ahan long throwing. And for the third goal, yet another, from this time it's a corner, and Ferrari was there to head home at the far post. How about open play? They were breath of ideas. Even Marcelino saved for a few odd moments of brilliance, including his contribution to the equalizer in the 12th minute. You can say he was frustrated. You can say that he really wanted to do so much, that so well, that trying to want to do so much more for Indonesia, that he committed 2 yellow cards. The second one rather unnecessary, a desperate tackle, when the same player who actually could score 2 well-taken goals against Saudi Arabia, 20 years old, yes I know, 20 years old, but he already has more than 30 caps already. He's already considered the anchor of the national team midfield, but yet he allowed himself to be carried away. Yes, that was the 2 words I was thinking about. Once things went south, the local Indonesians literally get carried away. And that is partially down to culture, partially down to how they were probably brought up raising. It's like you dribble, you try to find your own way to create your game and hope to be the hero by scoring the winning goal, or to provide the assist where you help the other guy score. And it's not a very structured way. It's free flow, albeit a bit random. But when it comes to international football, you can say, how do I describe this? It can go a bit, it can go either way. It can be beautiful, or it can go helter-skelter and to nowhere. And unfortunately for Indonesia tonight, working so much on their open play, especially in that second half, it was nowhere. Really nowhere. So, unfortunately, despite that 1 point, the young Garudas flopped in every department. In defense, their number 5 was so indecisive and got makan by the Laos captain that he got, unsurprisingly, sub out at halftime. And I doubt he's going to play another game in this ASEAN Championship. Same for their midfield, their number 15. Very invisible. Like what happened to the other midfielder in the first game against Myanmar. Akan Friki was also less visible this time. He was left to Marcelino, but when the entire midfield was invisible and giving away possession, and you got a very shaky backline, it's open heavens for any type of opponent. Even the weakest opponents who are smart enough to take advantage, they will exploit. And I think this is the big lesson to learn in the ASEAN Championship. When the opponents are fighting hard, do not give them any chance to attack your weaknesses. Indonesia unfortunately kept doing this repeatedly, and they paid the price by throwing away 2 points. They threw away 2 points tonight. It's so uncharacteristic of how they have been playing so far, albeit with stronger heritage players in the World Cup qualifiers. But Shindale can only do so much. Eric Tohier can also only do so much at this level. What about the rest? Your local league. Why did Shindale have to blood in so many raw players? Because he knows that these young players who are raw from the clubs, from the national age groups, they are not tainted by the system that is in the Liga 1. The Liga 1 has many talented players, but yet, do they fit the tactical discipline and know-how that Shindale requires even after he teaches them? I think through his years of experience in the archipelago, the answer is mixed. And once again, once you let these local born Indonesians play, those instincts come, and my goodness, it's a bit like a throwback to their predecessor days where they have all the talent like Ali Boy, Pang Pamukas and all that. It's like when they are organized and when they play against tough opponents, they're difficult to break down. But yet, when it comes to playing regional opponents, if they're not on song, you wonder what happened to them. Really? What happened? Again, that local instinct that is ingrained. So, but Shin Tae-yong is not the technical director. Eric Tohier probably has more things to do as a cabinet minister and all that. He's not going to be able to sit down and go review every single thing from top to bottom. And given the vastness of Indonesia, it's going to be impossible to try to totally revamp the whole thing from the get-go, because you got local quirks, you got different provincial quirks as well, island quirks, islander quirks and all that. Whether it's your Sumatras or Javanese or even the Papuans and all, and Ambonis and all this, the cultural side is more complex than people realize. Shin Tae-yong does is to try to get the Garudas as competitive as possible within the national team, and also through his influence and teaching in under 23 and age groups. But yet, we also have to realize, when your club level, I would say academy teaching, when your youth teaching is in a raw, is in a like freestyle dribble and all these things, and then you move on to structured teaching on the pitch, and also I think occasionally in the classroom through the videos and tactical boards, and then you go on to professional football, senior football at club level and all these things. And when your local league culture is that where you can say the tactics are less structured, it's up to the individual players to shine. But yet when the demands of the international game at two different levels of competition and two different types of competitions, the ability to maintain it, especially from those young seniors who have amassed quite a number of caps, I think they are also culpable for this one point. It's a letdown. So I think it's a wake-up call for the Indonesian football where this is concerned. It's not just about trying to reach the 2026 World Cup finals. It's good. It's a good aspiration to have. It's a good goal to push forward. At least your Marcelinos will be there as well, as long as your Jay Isidis, Martin Pace and all. But at the same time, how about your Liga 1s and all that? Your Liga 1 is only at that standard. Your young academies is probably that standard. And the complexity of the politics and the local mentalities, make this challenge to reform it very challenging, because in Japan it's already so structured that by the time the player comes into the J League, it's already at this level. J1, J2 at least, even J3 I think, it's at this level. And you got a lot more who are good but not at that level, languishing in the Japan Football League and other semi-professional regional leagues or city leagues. But it's at that level. Shin Tae-yong is trying to push Garuda to this level, but when the local mentality and all this is at the other level, it's very difficult. It's very tough. And I think it's time, perhaps, for the PSSI, policymakers, the technical staff to think, how are they going to... Shin Tae-yong can only be Indonesia coach for this long. He has already done so much, not just by having the heritage players, but also improving the local play standards to a much higher level than previously known. Much higher level. But yet, that little bit of local instinct, or you can say local mentality, is always lurking and waiting to erupt, waiting to surface. And it happened tonight. That's why Indonesia squandered the chance to go for 2 straight wins. Entertaining football nonetheless, full-blooded passion nonetheless. The Indonesians were just unfortunately too careless, too complacent in the thinking, especially those seniors, that led to, you can sense from Pramata Arhan early on and later on in Marcelino and a few others, the desperation they had with wild tackles, with shots that you normally wouldn't even think of trying to take against your likes of Japan or even China. But yet they did that against Laos. That's why I will end by saying this thing again. With that 3-3 draw, Indonesia had made Laos a stronger opponent than Saudi Arabia. With all due respect to Saudi Arabia as a long-standing Asian powerhouse, but the way their mentality, they approach their mentality, they make Laos as mighty as Saudi Arabia. Good night.